Hello, everyone. In one of the previous issues, I told you about the bright but unfortunately forgotten athlete of the golden era, Roy Callender, nicknamed the Barbados Bomber. And today we will talk about his compatriot, another native of Barbados, Charles Clairmonte. In the 90s, this athlete was a member of the highest echelon of world bodybuilding. His physique was considered one of the best examples of proportional and symmetrical muscular development. Undoubtedly, he is the most worthy follower of the classic athletic tradition, combining the aesthetics of Steve Reeves and the perfection of Arnold Schwarzenegger's forms. His sports career, first amateur and then professional, lasted a little over 10 years. But during this time, the Charles Clairmonte managed to win several prestigious titles at once, including Mr. Britain, Mr. Europe, and Mr. Universe. Our hero was born on October 26, 1962 on the island of Barbados, at that time still a colony of Great Britain. I joined the gym quite late, at the age of 19. At that age, as a very young man, Charles did not particularly stand out for his figure and muscles, as he was skinny and lanky, but daily workouts, working with iron, and excellent genetics still made themselves felt. Clairmonte progressed very quickly and became stronger and stronger every day. And after a year, it was difficult to recognize that skinny young man in this man. Charles burst onto the bodybuilding scene in the early 80s, and in 1986 he was able to win the famous Mr. Universe NABA amateur competition. By the way, Arnold Schwarzenegger himself started at this tournament at one time. He won this title in '67. Clairmonte then continued to dominate NABA's competitions for several years, winning the Mr. Universe Pro 3 times in a row in '88, '89, and '90, and was also the best at the World Championship in the same '90. It seemed to everyone that bodybuilder Charles Clairmonte's next goal would be to break Edward Cavacca's record. By the way, he won the Mr. Universe among the pros 4 years in a row, from the 82nd to the 85th, but that didn't happen. On the contrary, at the age of only 30, the athlete announced that he was going to give up competitive performances. The reason was simple: lack of finances. Back then, even for the winnings of major NABA championships, they paid very small amounts, on average from $3,000 to $10,000. Generous sponsorship contracts were out of the question. However, Charles Clairmonte changed his mind about leaving bodybuilding when in 1992 he received an offer from Wayne DeMilla, one of the then IFBB managers, to compete for titles in their organization. The IFBB felt that to promote their own competitions, it would be nice to lure the best NABB athlete to them. Of course, his motives for joining the Wider Brothers Federation were partly mercantile, but this did not bother Clairmonte, as he had a chance to continue doing what he loved. In the same year, '92, Clairmonte began competing in tournaments hosted by the IFBB. His debut on the pro scene was not entirely successful for him. At his first Grand Prix debut in Germany, he finished only 15th. However, the 30-year-old debutant could already be proud of being in the same lineup with the greats Kevin Levrone, Mohamed Benaziza, and Sonny Schmidt. It was a completely different level. It was these three who occupied the entire podium at that time. This is followed by tournaments in Britain and Holland, where Charles becomes 17th and 8th respectively. Such high places could break the desire of our hero, accustomed to victories, to continue his professional career. But that was not the case. Clairmonte trains even harder, and a year later in '93 wins 3 Grands Prix at once: France, Finland, and Spain, beating Kevin Levrone and Sonny Schmidt at each of them, to which he lost a year earlier. Plus, bodybuilding buffs like Milo Sartev, J.J. Marsh, and Ron Love were on the list of athletes he defeated. A little bit about the shape of our hero. Of course, Charles was very harmoniously developed. He was a bodybuilder with almost no weaknesses, but what was especially striking was the development of his biceps with their amazing peaks. Charles Clairmonte's hands are considered to be one of the best hands in the history of iron sports. Arnold Schwarzenegger set a new standard in the development of biceps. He believed that bodybuilding should have a new standard: arms of at least 50 centimeters. Over time, judicial leanings also swung towards similar views, and monsters like Yates and Coleman began to inflict crushing defeats on old-school bodybuilders. Charles Clairmonte caught this overestimation of value in time and began to develop his own hands in earnest, and he managed to build biceps with a circumference of 53 centimeters. So, after the triumphs on the European stage, the name of the young Barbadian boy becomes recognizable. He came to the States, and on March 22, 1993, in New York, he took the stage to perform at the Night of Champions. 33 athletes is the strongest competition, and Clairmonte is just short of the podium, coming in fourth behind Porter Cottrell, Andreas Munzer, and John Sherman. This success allows him to compete in the main tournament of his life, the dream of any bodybuilder, at the Olympia. In 1993, Dorian Yates, Flex Wheeler, and Sean Ray were out of the competition. It was these three who took the podium. But the battle for a place in the top 8 was serious. As a result, our hero became the 7th, beating Sonny Schmidt, Andreas Munzer, veteran Lou Ferrigno, and a dozen other athletes. Not bad for a debut. Moreover, the extravaganza of 1993 continued for Charles. Just a week after the Olympia, he enters the British Grand Prix and becomes the first, beating Olympia silver medalist Flex Wheeler. Perhaps such a success would not have happened, but Dorian Yates ignored the tournament in his homeland, even though he had won the title in Foggy Albion for 2 years in a row. In 1994, the Barbadian slows down a bit. There are no more victories, but there are pedestals. Clairmonte becomes the 3rd at the Grand Prix of France, Italy, Great Britain, to which the great Dorian Yates returned and left no chance for anyone. Charles goes to his 2nd Olympia and takes 8th place. The great Kevin Levrone, Sean Ray, and of course the monster of the masses Dorian Yates are back on top. A year later, in '95, Charles came to the USA where he took silver at the San Jose Pro Tournament after Mike Francois and became the 3rd at the Arnold Classic '95, also in the company of the same Mike Francois and Flex Wheeler. In general, I must say again that the mid-'90s was a time of incredible competition for athletes. Kevin Levrone, Flex Wheeler, Sean Ray, Dorian Yates, Lee Labrada, Paul Dillett, Andreas Munzer. There are not enough fingers and toes to list all the legends of the Silver Age. That's why Charles performs wherever possible. In '95, he attends Grand Prix in USA, France, Spain, Germany, Britain, and calls in Ukraine and Russia. But alas, there are no victories. He always gets into the top 6, and in France, Britain, and at the San Francisco Pro Tournament, he even ranks in the top 3, but that's not it. Hoping, he arrives at his 3rd Olympia '95, but shows an even worse result than last year, barely clinging to the top 10. Clairmonte understands that he is not getting younger. He is already 33 years old, his form is not getting better, and he is losing the competition to younger athletes. The mid and late '90s turned bodybuilding's priorities around. The avant-garde is now mass, not aesthetics and proportions. This is confirmed by the appearance of athletes such as Ronnie Coleman and Nasser El Sonbati. In '96, Charles travels around Europe, as he did the year before. But if in '95 he regularly got into the top 6 or even took medals, then in '96 he does not always even get into the top 10. His career was nearing its end. In 1997, he played in only 2 tournaments. At the Olympia, he becomes only 12th, and at his favorite British Grand Prix, he takes penultimate place. After such a setback, he realizes that it's time to end and leaves competitive bodybuilding. Bodybuilding fans and experts call Clairmonte one of the best physiques of his generation. For many years, he competed alongside the best of the best athletes in the world. His record is really impressive. Obviously, single-mindedness alone will not be enough to achieve such results. Well-thought-out training is needed to help unlock the athlete's potential. Charles was never a conservative in training, but he adhered to his own strict set of rules. First, physical fitness is the key to success. Avoid routine and uncontrolled repetition of the same exercises. Secondly, forget about turning the training into a marathon. Quality, not quantity, is the key to victory. Third, don't be afraid to experiment. Perhaps what looks ineffective in theory will turn out to be a working tactic in practice, and vice versa. Fourth, Change the order of exercises from workout to workout. Along the way, try to minimize rest by increasing the intensity of work. It is logical that his training program has been constantly upgraded, so it will be difficult to provide any specific scheme. Charles Clairmonte is 62 years old now. He is a professional coach, and his training program is sold for money. He works at the Body Limits gym in England and often helps beginners in setting the right training and nutrition schedule. He spent only 6 years on the professional stage, but he was certainly remembered by all bodybuilding fans for decades. It was Charles Clairmonte. As always, I will be grateful for your support. It helps in the development of the channel. Do not forget to click on the bell so as not to miss the new issue. Thanks for watching Sports Guru with you. See you later.